Welcome to This Week in the World of Wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort in commentary, Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review. This Raw was the go-home show for Money in the Bank this Sunday, and I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. We got some great interaction between the world title ladder match competitors. The Money in the Bank, the traditional ladder match, got rounded out. We even got some shining moments from our other favorite competitors, such as Bo Dallas and the like. A solid 3 hours worth of Raw, and you know how 3 hours tends to drag for me, so I think that's saying something.
Yeah, man. Admittedly, I was really kind of dreading this Raw in the first, I'll say like 45 minutes, but it picked up relatively quickly after that, and I think it really held the gas pedal down throughout the rest of the entire show.
I completely agree with you, so with that said, let's get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night! And I gotta say, I have zero heats of the night tonight. I was perfectly cool with this Raw. Ashton, what about you?
You might not have any heats of the night tonight, but you really put your back into that intro. I'm impressed.
I'm pumped, man. I freaking love TWitWoW.
That being said, I do have one incredibly serious. I'm not, like, this isn't one of my joke heats of the night, like, how dare you be too good Raw, but, like, this is a legitimate, like, I freaking hate this.
Ooh, alright, let's talk it out, man. What's going on?
Now, our rule is no heats of the night for Divas segments. This is for a Divas segment, but it isn't because of the segment itself. The commentary during the Divas segment tonight, Alicia Fox versus Naomi to be specific, was beyond offensive and atrocious, and just any negative adjective that you can possibly think of is probably an appropriate way to describe the commentary during the Alicia Fox-Naomi match tonight.
Not just the commentary, but the behavior from the commentators, as you made it known to me, Ashton. One Jerry Lawler has eyes that like to wander around the arena, doesn't he?
See, and you know what, dude? I don't even really have that much of a problem with that. It's creepy, yeah, but I mean, if you were sitting next to Paige and she stood up, are you trying to tell me you wouldn't take that opportunity to sneak a peek?
I mean, look, is she a beautiful woman? Absolutely. But I think, first of all, it does send that creepy vibe. Second of all, you have to me, always be on guard in this internet age of ours, because there's no such thing as privacy or be able to steal a moment or things like that, you know? So now that he got caught, and it's probably all over the web, you gotta wonder, is Paige gonna see that? Is anybody in WWE gonna see that? How are they gonna react? You know, it really creates issues that didn't have to be created. If he had just kept his eyes on the ring for just a few extra seconds before she sat down. I'm just saying, in this internet age of ours, you can't be too careful. He was careless, and yeah, again, it is very creepy. We joke about it all the time, but I was legitimately skeeved out when I first saw that. Like, ugh.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's, I don't know, that's, like I said, I don't have a huge problem with that. Like I said, it's creepy, but, again, I feel like any straight heterosexual male would have taken that opportunity. So, yeah, Lawler seriously needs to learn to control his urges on live television in front of 3 to 5 million people, but at the end of the day, he is a human being. The problem that I had was a combination of two things. First of all, Cameron plus commentary equals I want to mute my television. And second of all, JBL, Cole, and Lawler all displayed a pretty obnoxious amount of misogyny on commentary tonight. Michael Cole says something about how when he's on commentary with Cameron, you can't get a word in edgewise. And then Lawler replied, "Oh, well, if you're surprised by that, then you must not have hung around any women." And of course, JBL kind of chimes in with the approval and the laughter afterwards. Like, the idea that they're stereotyping all women as being unable to get a word in edgewise when you're around them, to me, I don't usually have a problem with the whole, women are loud and talkative jokes, but you're supposed to be professionals. I can understand it if a heel would say something like that, like a heel wrestler and he was trying to get heat and he was trying to be like racist or not racist, sexist and misogynistic. But for not only JBL, who I can kind of let get away with it because he is the heel commentator, so it makes it somewhat acceptable, even if it isn't really. For freaking Lawler and Cole to go there too, it just, like, guys, have some freaking dignity in your work, please. And you know what? The worst part about all of this, and the primary reason why this is the heat of the night for me, is that all of this going on and the camera constantly be focused on Cameron and commentary and Paige rather than the match. This match was freaking good. Naomi versus Alicia Fox, these women put on a freaking exciting match. The crowd was actually getting into it, and I know that because I could see behind the commentators, the crowd was sucked in, and every time they put the camera on the match, which seems like it was less than 50% of the time that it was actually going on, I was enjoying myself. But again, commentary freaking ruined it.
Interesting points all around. I'm going to begin, point by point as you list them. First and foremost, Cameron, you're going to be shocked by this, but you know what? I hated her on commentary too, right? I'm like, oh my God, just stop. Because like you and I have watched, told Divas, watching her here, it's just like we always say, she's a terrible talker and she just comes off as a really horrible person. I'm like, you know what? This could actually be a really good thing because we've been hearing a litany of reports on AJ and everything and how long she's going to be gone. To me, Cameron could be a top diva heel in her division because she's just so unlikable. Like, I'm listening to her talk, and I was hoping that Naomi would come over hearing some of the things she was saying and slap the taste out of her mouth. So, like, you know what? As much as I'm hating it, this must be what they want because you know the Funkadactyls are going to dissolve. You know they're going to go their separate ways, and Cameron is clearly going to be the heel here. And she could actually get that top spot. And I am saying that with the straightest face. Believe me, if I was going to laugh, I would have done it long ago.
Okay, John, I know we just recently watched the Jurassic Park trilogy, so I'm going to quote that first movie to you. Sometimes we need to stop worrying so much about whether we can do something and stop to think about whether we should do something. Cameron is terrible. Cameron doesn't deserve to be a top anything in the Divas division. Cameron in the ring on a consistent basis is dangerous to herself and the women that she's in the ring with. That would be irresponsible.
I don't know, man. Look, I'm not saying I really like it. I'm just saying I could see that happening because I can't help but not like her with her antics and everything. And I bet a lot of people share my sentiments. So whether you and I like it or not, I could very easily see it happening. Now, on to your other points, though. That I completely agree. Really, it's bad enough that the commentary was the primary focus when a legitimately good match was going on because Alicia Fox has just been on her A game, and you and I have been high on Naomi since the beginning. I see definitely a future Divas champion in her. But yeah, then the remarks that they make on top of that, it's not even their usual drivel of bad jokes and this and that. They actually have to go into that territory when the women have been killing it lately, particularly NXT, sure, but you can see that the main roster women are starting to step up a little bit, and yet the commentary still won't give them their due in that regard. It's incredibly frustrating. I've often said that commentary has the job of transporting, the reality of what's going on there to all of the televisions worldwide watching at home, creating that atmosphere. And it's because of commentary like this that I think a majority of people still perceive women's wrestling as the piss break or the snack break. It's not right. Give them their due. Give them their proper respect. They're going out there. They're busting their ass. Some of them doing better than some of the men, just my personal opinion. And yet they don't
I would rather watch a Naomi match than a Kofi Kingston match at this point.
Completely agree. And yet they don't get one modicum of credit for it on commentary where it could actually matter. It really just makes me want to facepalm.
This kind of segment really makes me wonder how AJ took as long as she did to GTFO out of there.
I think AJ, I don't want to speak for her, but if I know her mindset like I think I do, maybe she just wants to know that she did it all before she took her big leave. And, she was really relevant in a lot of main event segments, and then her Divas title run, smashing records, being the longest reigning Divas champion. And then she got to put over Paige of all people, who I'm sure she has the deepest of respects for. That's only a guess. But, Yeah, I don't know how she took it, especially because, you know what, when she was champion, nobody gave her due either, and you and I complained about that on a weekly basis. Commentary never gave AJ any respect. It was always Total Divas, Total Divas, Total Divas. Oh, AJ, aren't you jealous of Total Divas? Oh, AJ, you know, you just seem a little insecure. And yet she kept winning, and she kept being dominant, and yet nobody would concede, yeah, AJ, you know, you deserve your spot. You're strong in your spot. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I'm glad that I got that off my chest because, man, that freaking annoyed the crap out of me. So if you want to move on, since you said you didn't have any heats of the night, I am perfectly fine with doing so.
All right, man, let us get right into our Monday Night Raw review. And Ashton, how do we open this one up?
We open this thing up, as usual, with one of the members of the Authority coming out to talk. Stephanie McMahon this time, but this time they're not talking about Daniel Bryan or The Shield or Evolution. They're talking, well, she, more specifically, is talking about Vickie Guerrero. She says that Vickie is so incompetent that she couldn't even manage to get her a coffee right and all this stuff, and she calls Vickie out. Vickie comes out and starts apologizing and says that she knows who did to the drink what got done to it and that she thinks it was Roman Reigns. And then Stephanie says, you know, that's not the point. The point is that for the last 9 years you have been riding your late husband's coattails, and then she nearly fires her, but Vickie stops her mid-sentence and says, stop, Stephanie, I'll do anything. I'll even beg if you want. And the crowd starts chanting no, but Stephanie says, oh, really? You don't want to see that? Because I kind of want to see that. I want to see you beg, Vickie. Get down on your knees and beg. And she starts screaming in her face as Vickie's down on her knees, begging to keep her job. And Steph is just kind of taunting her. Stephanie says that Vickie can't even do that right. And she basically says she has two choices. She can either resign or, in this case, get fired, or win her match tonight. Vickie says, no, I'm not a competitor. Stephanie says, okay, so is this you tendering your resignation? Vickie says, well, who would my opponent be? And that's when Stephanie gets all uppity and giddy and says, well, that's the beautiful thing in this, Vickie. Your opponent is me. With that McMahon growl. Vickie kind of like gets down in the dumps, but then Steph starts getting all like uppity again and intimidating, and she starts asking Vickie, what, are you not going to be able to do it? You don't want to do this? And then Vickie kind of nuts up, and she's like, you know what? There's one name in the history of this business that's more well respected than McMahon, and that's Guerrero. And she says, so if you'll just, and then she screams, excuse me, to a gigantic pop, something I've never seen before, and accepts the challenge. So basically, in the matter of 11 minutes, Stephanie McMahon proved that she is the top heel in the company by somehow or another turning Vickie Guerrero, of all people, into the most beloved female in the WWE.
I marveled at this segment. I really did, because I never thought in a million years that Vickie Guerrero would get any kind of a babyface reaction. And the fact that Stephanie achieved that, of all people, and let's think about the things that Vickie's been through that, you know, would have deserved sympathy. I mean, Edge publicly divorced her on a Raw and ripped her to shreds. She's constantly had jokes about her weight. She's constantly been the butt of all sorts of jokes. And yet, you know, none of that would garner her sympathy. People would laugh and people would have fun at Vickie's expense. And yet, in an 11-minute segment, as you said, because Vickie, Stephanie invoked Eddie Guerrero and stuff, which most of the time I would find tasteless, but I actually thought it was done well here, because they didn't dwell on it, and she just said, well, you know, that's the only reason you have this job and you're here, and, you know, that was kind of the foundation to build everything else up, and then just really degrading Vickie, and then her, as you said, Ashton, nutting up. The crowd ate it up. And Vickie Guerrero got such a strong babyface reaction. And the fact that her catchphrase, excuse me, which has been so hated and has been the product of so much heat over the years, actually got a huge pop, just absolutely floored me. This segment was brilliant.
Yeah, this was great. Mind-blowing as far as psychology goes, because it really makes you wonder, like, if they can pull this off, why haven't they even tried to turn John Cena heel? Good God.
That's just it, though. If you can make Vickie Guerrero, for all the things that she's done and all the things that she's been through, a sympathetic babyface character in one night, that really convinces me, and I'm not saying this to kind of wag my finger. On the contrary, I'm saying this is the biggest compliment possible. I do believe WWE can do anything at this point if they really wanted to. If
And
they
you know what,
really,
dude? That's the thing. If they wanted to do anything to me, I mean, I kind of threw out the turn Cena heel thing, which is kind of a marky thing to say. But at the end of the day, if they can do anything, why don't they just make it so that John Cena is actually a good babyface that gets cheered by most people, rather than the douchey, borderline heel babyface that he is now?
I don't know. I don't know really how to answer that. Maybe one day. I've given up hope on that ever since, the feud with The Rock concluded. I'm like, yeah, that's never happening. I know a lot of people abandoned that ship long before I did. But, the fact that they did this with Vickie, who again has just been so hated over the years, just really proves to me if they wanted to make a Jack Swagger a babyface, I believe they could do it. If they wanted to make a John Cena heel, they could do it. When you can do something like this, I don't think there's any limit to what you can do. I commend everybody that took part in this segment. And Stephanie is just tops. I mean, if anybody hasn't given her due yet as a heel, they better give it to her now because she's second to none.
This to me proves that Stephanie McMahon, with the heat that she has right now, has the ability to turn literally anybody babyface if they would put their mind to it and let her try.
Exactly. If they give all of themselves to it, as you saw Vickie did, and Stephanie, what's so great about Stephanie as a heel is just how much she appears to enjoy it. She was reveling in Vickie's misery and just thinking that she was holding all the cards, which just makes when the babyface, or really anybody on the other side of Stephanie's wrath, so much more sympathetic and so much more likable when they do stand up, because it's like, no, you're not invincible, and I am going to fight back. I can't believe how much I thoroughly enjoyed this and that they pulled this off. They really should be commended for it.
Stephanie McMahon would be able to turn Alberto Del Rio face.
I believe it, and I hated his face turn. I thought it was so forced, and like, some of the promos he'd cut, I'd be like, dude, are you serious? But if Stephanie McMahon was the object of that sympathy in that turn, I think it could have been pulled off. Abso-freaking-lutely. I think that's one of the reasons why it's worked so well for Ziggler, because people have this perception that the Authority, doesn't like Ziggler, and you see that he's cut him off, and it just makes people rally behind him more because he's fighting the Authority figure. He's fighting the people that take their boot and keep everybody else down underneath it. It works. It's a simple formula, and it works.